Amen. Good morning. How's everybody doing this morning? We awake? Anybody wanted to sleep in? Anybody question whether they're going to get out of bed this morning? I know some of you online are probably, we stayed in bed. It's all right. But thank y'all for coming and celebrating with us this morning. Excited you're here. This morning we're gonna continue and kind of pick up where Mark left off last week in this series called Blurred Lines, and we're taking a look at some of the things in our lives that kind of blur the lines for us, make things complicated. So I want to start with a question. How many of you have ever driven in like dense fog? Anybody ever driven in dense fog? It's scary, right? Like it really gets nerve-wracking. The worst fog that I've ever driven in was probably up on the Blue Ridge Parkway. And, 1 minute you can see 100 feet out in front of you, and then it's like you hit a wall, and now you can't see but 10 feet in front of you. The lines start to disappear. My wife gets really nervous. She squeezes my hand, starts to freak. It's scary because a part of driving is that you need to see to know where you're going, right? And when you can't see the road or you can't see the lines that are directing you, things get a little complicated and things get a little scary. And I feel like that's sometimes how life feels like. Life sometimes feels like it's unpredictable, and what's coming ahead we may not know, and there's seasons in our life where maybe you don't even know what the day's going to hold, right? You're just so stressed out and overwhelmed, and things are so chaotic that it feels like you don't even know what's going to happen in the day, and it gets really scary. And it gets really, really blurry. And hopefully not all seasons in your life feel like this, but maybe this morning you feel like you're in a season where things are blurry, and maybe you don't know which way to turn. And there are so many things that make us feel that way. And last week, Mark talked about disagreements and how sometimes these disagreements can cloud our vision and kind of separate us and divide us. And we talked about the world that we live in today and how we are very divided. But the common denominator, the thing that will draw us together, the thing that will help us to look past our disagreements is God's love and coming together in God's plan for our lives. And when we do that, then the blurriness will start to fade. And so today, I want to talk about another thing that I think can make our lives really blurry. And it's something that every single one of us has. There's no way that any of us can avoid this. Does anybody want to take a guess at what we're going to talk about? Every one of you has it. You can't avoid it. Anything. No answers. Guesses. Or maybe the old mind's got it at this point. Who knows? All right, so enough of the guessing then. Every single one of us has a past. How many of you have a past? So a lot of times when we talk about a past, typically it's like not a good thing, right? We hear someone say, well, they have a past. It's like, oh, they have a lot of baggage or a lot of secrets. And, typically the scenario is you're hanging out and you're gossiping, right, which you shouldn't be doing. You're like, did you hear what they did? Did you hear their past? Can you believe they're doing what they're doing? Can you believe they're where they're at with their past, right? But that's not particularly what I'm going to talk about this morning. Maybe your past is messy, but maybe it's not. But every single one of us has a past. None of us were walking around today and all of a sudden just poofed into existence, and you're 35 years old and you don't know your background, you don't have a mom and dad, you just appeared out of thin air. That doesn't happen. You have a past. You have a history, and your history is a part of you. Now, typically, when we look at our past, we're really quick to compare ourselves with others, right? Like, let me see what they've done so that I can feel a little better about myself. Anybody done that? Anybody want to be honest? You're like, all right, look at they were bad too, so I feel a little better about myself. Or you're like, oh, look at the position they hold. They're doing really good, and they have a broken past, so maybe there's some hope for me. We're really, really quick to compare ourselves to see how we qualify with other people. And comparing is a slippery slope. And some of it may be harmless. We're going to compare ourselves here in a minute, and hopefully it's harmless. But lots of comparison can be really dangerous. And it's a surefire way to blur the lines in your life. It's a surefire way to make sure that the things aren't going to be seen clearly. Our past alone is enough to blur the lines, but when we add comparison to the picture, it gets really, really complicated. So I want to compare ourselves, hopefully in a harmless way. You can choose to participate or not. I hope you do, because I hope we can have some fun this morning. So I'm going to ask some questions, and you can raise your hand if you agree with the statement that I make. So the first one is, how many of you have a hidden talent? Raise your hand. If I have a hidden talent, nobody has a hidden talent, or no one's participating. Which one? All right, we got one hidden talent. I think I used to have a hidden talent when I was a kid. I could like stand still and do a backflip. And then one night I did it and landed on my neck, and I never did it again. So I don't have a hidden talent anymore. But I'm a little sad that we don't have more hidden talents in the room. How many of you have a bad habit? Raise your hand. All right, got more hands up. Okay, cool. Okay. How many of you have never seen a Marvel movie? All right, a couple hands. This is heartbreaking. Oh, I got one here thinking, what is a Marvel movie? How many of you are asking that question? What is a Marvel movie? All right, find a teenager and they'll get you up to speed really quick. You probably have seen one. How many of you have a favorite celebrity? Anybody have a favorite celebrity? Nobody has a favorite celebrity? Okay, there's some honesty. I don't want to raise my hand on that one. How many of you like fan over them a little too much? It's a little embarrassing how much you have a favorite celebrity. All right, okay. We got one. All right, cool. All right, how many of you have ever gotten a really bad haircut? Anybody? All right. How many of you got a really bad haircut from a family member during COVID? Yes. Good. Awesome. How many of you have never fallen in public, like tripped? Anybody? Never fallen? I'll be honest, I almost fell getting up here when Mark was praying. My shoe caught. It's going to be embarrassing. All right, so pretty much all of us have. All right, how many of you have a few insecurities? All right, how many of us have never compared ourselves to someone else? Yeah, no hands. All right. So through this little activity, we probably looked around the room and we compared ourselves a little bit. Like, I don't know if I should raise my hand or not. But we do in life, we like to compare ourselves to see how we measure up to the people around us. It's kind of our human nature. And maybe some of you look out into the world and you see some nice car driving down the road and you're like, man, if I only could have that car, I would be the coolest. Or maybe you have a vision board of the house you want to own someday and it's got like an indoor pool and a movie theater and like, you're driving a Lamborghini because you're going to win the lottery. That's probably not very realistic, but hey, we all have dreams, right? Maybe some of you don't dream about things, but maybe you dream about your career or your life. Maybe you see someone else's career and you're like, I wish I had their career. I wish I was this famous producer. Or I wish I was this famous musician. Or I was a very successful, popular lawyer or doctor or whatever it may be. And so you compare yourselves in your career path. But when you're at work or you're at the gym or you're catching up at your favorite coffee shop or at school or you're watching a YouTube video or you're scrolling through social media, it becomes we can become very quickly aware of how we compare with other people. And there's nothing wrong with dreaming and there's nothing wrong with having desires, but often our dreams and the way we compare ourselves reveal more about who we want to be compared to everybody else than who we actually are. And maybe you're here this morning and you're like, my life's not that exciting. Like, I wish I was more successful. I wish I was, as fun as other people, or my life was as fun as other people's. Maybe you're here this morning and you're like, I'm not as interesting or popular or attractive as everybody else, or maybe the real me isn't good enough. And I feel like one of the greatest traps in our society today when it comes to comparing ourselves in that nature is social media, right? Because you get on social media and you see everybody's perfect life, right? No one posts how terrible their life is. No one posts the real pictures, right? The honest pictures of, you got your family pictures and everybody's color coordinated and there's no blemishes and everybody's a little sweet angel. But in reality, you're pulling your hair out, your kids are running all over the place, and you had to do like 45,000 attempts to get it right and throw filters on the picture to make it look right. And then you researched on Google captions to make it perfect and you post it and you're like, that's my life. And so we look at the social media and we're like, man, I wish my life was like theirs. And in reality, their life is just like yours. They're just posting the pristine moments that are far and few between. But it sets us up to compare on an even grander scale. And so we admit it. We all compare ourselves to others. And I think that's mainly because we're running from our past. We started this with, we all have a past. But maybe you're running from your past. Maybe you feel like your past determines who you are. Maybe you feel like your past determines your worth. Maybe you feel like your past is going to determine who you are going to be in the future. We're afraid of our past. And sometimes we don't want to own our past because maybe our story is too painful, right? You have a broken past and no one wants to hear that, or that's what you think, and no one will respect me because they don't know what I've done, and so I have to pretend to be someone I'm not because my past is broken. Or maybe you feel like your story is too boring and ordinary, like there's nothing exciting in my past. I'm just a normal person, a normal upbringing, and my future is going to be just as boring. It's just ordinary. Maybe you feel like your story is incomplete. Maybe you feel like every opportunity you had to succeed in something, you never quite met the goal. You never quite got there, and so you feel incomplete. Or maybe you're looking at someone else's story and you wish it was yours. So if any of that sounds familiar with you this morning, then I want you to know that you're not alone. You're not alone. And I would typically never encourage us to compare ourselves with others, but this morning I'm going to ask you to. We're going to be taking a look at some stories from Scripture, and I want you to see your life. And I'm not asking you to compare your life as in, oh, I wish I was them, but I want you to see their past. And I want you to understand that even if your past is broken or ordinary or whatever your past is, that God still wants to use your life, regardless of your past. And so I want to take a look at a story from the book of John, and this is the account of Jesus on his way back to Galilee from Judea. And I love that Jesus has a past and it's perfect. But even Jesus did things that, from the cultural standpoint, went against every grain. It cut the barriers of what people thought was okay. And Jesus was just who he is. And it plays out over and over again through Scripture. I think some of the things that Jesus did, people cringed at. We see that all the time. And this is one of them stories that I think the people around watching and that were there were cringing at. But Jesus lets his love shine through. So we're going to be reading John chapter 4, verses 1 through 9, and then we're going to actually read some more of the story here in a minute. So it says this. It says, Jesus knew the Pharisees had heard that he was baptizing and making more disciples than John. Though Jesus himself didn't baptize them, his disciples did. And so he left Judea and returned to Galilee. He had to go through Samaria on the way, and eventually he came to a Samaritan village of Sychar, and near the field that Jacob gave his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there. And Jesus, tired from the long walk, sat wearily beside the well about noontime. And soon a Samaritan woman came to draw water. And Jesus said to her, "Please give me a drink." He was alone at the time because his disciples had gone into the village to buy some food. And the woman was surprised, for Jews refused to have anything to do with Samaritans. She said to Jesus, "You are a Jew, and I am a Samaritan woman. Why are you asking me for a drink?" And I want to pause here for just a minute because it's very, very important that we understand what's going on in this situation. Because if we don't, then we're not going to understand the context of the rest of this message. So when we look out in our world today, and this is what Mark talked about last week, when we look out into our world, we see a lot of division, right? There's a million things that our world is dividing over. We're dividing politically, we're dividing racially, and the list can just go on and on and on. So there's a lot of tension. But from this story and throughout Scripture, we can see that this division is nothing new. It's been going on for quite some time, and that is exactly what's going on in this story. There is a lot of racial tension and religious tension between the Jews and the Samaritans. To put it blankly and bluntly, they hate each other during this time period. They had a passion to hate one another. The Samaritans considered themselves to be Jews, and the Jews would not accept this, and the Jews considered them to be Gentiles, which is just a fancy word for they weren't Jewish. And it's so bad that they wouldn't even associate with one another. They were simply disgusted to be around one another, and they disagreed on everything. And I think that's why when the disciples are questioning Jesus later on about what's to come, he tells them that they're going to go out and they're going to spread the message of Christ into the world. And I love that he specifically includes Samaria. And I think he does that for a reason. Acts 1:8 says this, "But you will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes upon you, and you will be my witness, telling people about me everywhere in Jerusalem, throughout Judea, in Samaria, and into the ends of the earth." I love that Jesus includes Samaria because I think he's saying, hey, disciples, you hear me? I'm including Samaria. He didn't skip over it. The disciples would have been like, all right, Jesus, we're going to take your message out to Jerusalem. We're going to take it out to Judea and the rest of the world, and we're going to skip Samaria because we hate them and they're no good. But Jesus is like, no, hear me loud and clear. I have come to save the world, and that includes the Samaritans. That includes everyone. So in short, Jews and Samaritans, they hate each other. And this is why the woman at the well is shocked that Jesus even acknowledged that she was there. She says, I am a Jew and I am a Samaritan woman and you are a Jew. Why are you asking for water? So on top of this, so Samaritan and Jews, they don't get along. On top of this, there's another cultural thing that's going on here that would have been deemed inappropriate. Jesus was alone and he was talking to a woman. That would have not been very acceptable during this day and age. They wouldn't have been allowed to kind of communicate when no one else was around. It would have definitely been looked down upon. It would have been taboo for Jesus to speak to this woman. But you've got to love that Jesus doesn't play by the culture's rules. He plays by his own. He sees a child who he has compassion for. He has love in his heart for her, and he wants to change her life. So let's check out what happens. We're going to drop down and continue in this story. It says, the woman was surprised, for Jews refused to have anything to do with Samaritans. She said to Jesus, you are a Jew, and I am a Samaritan woman. Why are you asking me for a drink? And Jesus replied, if you only knew the gift God has for you and who you are speaking to, you would ask me, and I would give you living water. But sir, you don't have a rope or a bucket, she said, and this well is very deep. Where would you get this living water? And besides, do you think you're greater than our ancestor Jacob, who gave us this well? How can you offer better water than he and his sons and his animals enjoyed? And Jesus replied, anyone who drinks this water will soon become thirsty again, but those who drink the water I give will never be thirsty again. It becomes a fresh, bubbling spring within them, giving them eternal life. Please, sir, the woman said, give me this water, and I'll never be thirsty again, and I won't have to come here and get water. Go and get your husband, Jesus told her. I don't have a husband, the woman replied. And Jesus said, you're right. You don't have a husband, for you have had 5 husbands, and you aren't even married to the man that you're living with now. You certainly spoke the truth. That's pretty tough, isn't it? I mean, there is so much that we can unwrap in this passage, but I want to focus on that latter part, because I think it's important to understand, again, what's going on. How many of you have ever been called out before? Anybody ever been called out? It's not a lot of fun. Maybe you get called in a lie. No one's ever lied, right? Maybe let's pretend that we've all lied before. Anybody ever, started a little white lie, and before long it started to build, and it was just small at first. You're just covering up something small, but eventually you had to expand that lie to something more and more and more and more to cover your story. And the more questions that were asked, the more your lie expanded until finally someone realizes that you're lying and they call you out on it. It's like getting caught in tracks, deer in headlights, heart just stops, right? It's painful. Getting called out by people is tough, and that's what's going on here. And I've learned in my life, it doesn't matter at what age or what the age of the person who's calling you out, it can be tough. I love that I have a daughter, and she calls us out on things all the time, and we're not lying to our daughter, don't worry. But I love the other day that my wife, let me start from the beginning. Elin loves to draw with crayons, right? She loves to draw, and as a first-time couple with our first kid, you save every drawing that they do. It can have like 3 chicken scratch marks on it, and you're like, this is a masterpiece. They're going to be the next Picasso. It's going to be worth millions one day. And so, but after a while, after like the 400th picture, you decide that you don't have enough space in your house to save all the pictures, so you start to secretly throw them away. Please don't judge me, but you do. You start to throw them away. So Elin drawed a picture for my wife. And, Mommy, look what I made you. She doesn't even know I'm sharing this story. But look what I've made you. And Valerie was like, oh, it's so beautiful, Elin. It's wonderful. And she said, Mommy, let's stick it on your desk. Stick it on your desk. You're like, all right. So secretly, after Elin walked out of the room, it went from the desk to the trash can. And the next day, Elin comes crawling out from under Valerie's desk and said, Mommy, did you put this in there? Did you throw this away? She called her out, right? Like, called her out, called in, and it hurts, right? As a parent, you're like, oh, she got me. Like, she knows now that I threw her artwork away. So it doesn't matter at what age you get called out. It can be painful. But can you imagine getting called out in the way that Jesus calls out this lady? Like, he knows nothing about her past, or at least she thinks that he knows nothing about her past. She meets a stranger at a well, and in the middle of the conversation, Jesus is like, hey, I know who you are. And it's pretty broken. You've had 5 husbands, and the one you're with now, the guy that you're hanging around, you're not even married to him. It's got to be a painful moment. And my mind goes to, okay, Jesus is calling her out, and I'm sure her mind was going this direction, and she's probably thinking, he's just like everybody else. He's going to tell me that I'm useless and I'm worthless, and, that my past is too broken to be used, my present is broken, and that my future is going to be broken as well. Unless I just get my act together somehow, things are just going to be terrible. And I'm sure that this is the direction that maybe her mind's going. But again, this is Jesus, and this is not what he does. I love the fact that he doesn't react in the way that maybe we would, but he reacts in such a different way. So check this out. He says, Sir, the woman said, you must be a prophet. So tell me why it is that you Jews insist that Jerusalem is the only place to worship, while Samaritans claim that it is here at Mount Gerizim, where our ancestors worshiped. And Jesus replied, believe me, dear woman, the time is coming when it will no longer matter where you worship the Father, on this mountain or in Jerusalem. You Samaritans know very little about the one you worship, while we Jews know all about him, for salvation comes through the Jews. But the time is coming, it is indeed here now, when true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. The Father is looking for those who will worship him in that way. For God is spirit, so those who worship him must worship in spirit and in truth. The woman said, I know the Messiah is coming, the one who is called Christ. When he comes, he'll explain everything to us. And Jesus told her, I am the Messiah. And just then the disciples came back, and they were shocked to find him talking to a woman, but none of them had the nerve to ask, what do you want with her? Or why are you talking to her? The woman left her water jar beside the well and ran back to the village, telling everyone, come and see a man who told me everything I ever did. Could he possibly be the Messiah? And so people, we're going to jump down to verse 39. It says, so people came streaming from the village to see him. Many Samaritans from the village believed in Jesus because the woman said, he told me everything I ever did. Now, I love this example because from Jesus' standpoint, it shows who he truly is. That he's not barred by the ways of society. I love that he's not even barred by his disciples. His closest followers are sitting there, and in their mind, they're questioning what Jesus is doing. The disciples are looking at Jesus, and they're like, what are you doing, Jesus? Like, they come back, and they're like, why is he sitting with a woman in the middle of the day talking to her? Like, they're obviously a little offended, but Scripture says they don't have the nerve to actually bring it up. So the disciples are like, why are you doing this, Jesus? I'm sure they're thinking, Jesus, you got to get your act together. Like, this whole ministry thing, this whole gospel thing's never going to catch on if you don't stop doing things that are culturally taboo. We're going to get murdered. This is just not the way to do things. Yet they don't say any of that because they don't have the nerve to call out Jesus. But I love that Jesus responds in the way he does. I want to review this because I want us to understand the weight and the gravity of this. So let's review it quickly. Jesus is talking to a Samaritan woman. She's had 5 husbands, and she's with a man who she's not even married to now. Now, that record would be a little unusual for our day and age, right? But it would have certainly been unheard of for her period of time to have 5 husbands and to be living with a man who she's not married to. It would have been very unusual. And Jesus doesn't write her off, but he actually has a life-changing conversation with her. The woman has a pretty good feeling that this man, Jesus, is the Messiah. And so what happens next, I think it's so powerful, and it's at the core of what I want us to understand this morning. This woman from simple heritage, Jews and Samaritans shouldn't have been speaking to one another. Her past is extremely broken. From a societal standpoint, Jesus should have never even looked at her, but Jesus shares some life-changing information. It changes her life, and then she goes to change a community forever. A ton of people come to know Jesus. It says Jesus stays 2 days and teaches because of one woman who listened to Jesus and then invited others to come and hear. Now, listen to me if you haven't listened to me before this point. If Jesus can use this Samaritan woman to change a community, then he can use you. If Jesus can use this Samaritan woman to change a community, then he can use you. Jesus can and wants to use your life. So you have a past. So what? So did the Samaritan woman. And yet God chose to use her. It doesn't get much more exciting and life-changing than Jesus stepping into this culture and changing everything that his disciples thought and the world around him thought, and Jesus paving the way saying, I didn't come to save just the good. I didn't come just to save the people that you think I should have saved. I came to save the world. And I'm going to show you that through this love that I'm sharing with this Samaritan woman. By the way, the woman was at the well at noontime because no one else wanted to talk to her. She wouldn't have been allowed at the well when everybody else would have been drawing water. Who draws water during the hottest part of the day? No one, unless you don't want to be seen and you're not accepted. But the Savior finds her there. Jesus can use your life. If one example's not enough, let me give you a few more this morning. You remember Noah? Anybody remember Noah? We talked about him not too long ago. Okay, so Noah played this huge role in saving the human race, right? Like he continued humanity on, and shortly after the ark settled and he went out in the land, he planted a vineyard. Nothing wrong with that. Made some wine. Nothing wrong with that. But then he drank so much of his wine that he got blackout drunk, naked, and had his son see him, and it changed the course of an entire population of people because of this mistake that Noah made, and yet God chose to use his life to change the world. How about Moses? Anybody know of Moses? Moses was a murderer. He murdered a man out of rage. He had to change his entire life because of it. He had to flee his country and run, and yet God said, you're the one I'm going to use to free my people from slavery, and your name is going to be known across the entire world for thousands of years to come because I can use you. You're just who I need. Anybody ever heard of Rahab? Well, Rahab was a prostitute, actively in prostitution when God told her what to do, and she ended up saving countless lives because of her actions. How about a man named David? He's labeled a man after God's own heart, but in the middle of his relationship with God, in the middle of his life, he ends up sleeping with a married woman, getting her pregnant, and to hide the whole situation, he has her husband killed on the battlefield so that his little secret sin wouldn't be known. How about Paul? Paul was basically a Christian murderer. He watched as Christians were killed. His goal was to go into families' home, drag them out to be tried, and if they didn't denounce their faith, to be beaten and imprisoned and murdered for their beliefs. Bad man. But then he found Jesus, or Jesus found him. It changed his life forever, and Paul went to be one of the greatest spreaders of the gospel, of the message of Christ into this world. And that Bible that you have on your phone or in your home or wherever, a lot of the New Testament was written by that very man, Paul, who once was a Christian murderer, but God used him to change the world forever. And I'm not justifying any of these things that these men and women did. They were sins, and they were broken. They had a very broken past. They made mistakes along the way, but it did not disqualify them from being used by God. He can use your life for good. And He can use your life today. And if that doesn't encourage you, then I don't know what will. Because if I had to guess, you have a past. And if I had to guess, you probably have some regrets. And you probably have some brokenness in there, and maybe some ordinary, and maybe some boring. You have a past. But you also have today. And a future. We don't know how long our future will be. But you have today. And shame on us if we let our past determine our today. And we let our past determine our future. Because God wants to use your life. So as we start to close out this morning, I want to bring up some truths that I feel like I needed to share this morning. If there's some truths that I need you to grasp in this message, then I think these are them. So listen up. This is what I know about today. Today, God loves you just as you are. No stipulations, no and ifs or buts. But today, God loves you just as you are. Today, you're exactly who you need to be in order to be used by God. Does that mean that you have everything together? No. But God can still use you. Yeah, but Matt, I've got this broken past, and yeah, but I've done this. Oh, did you hear the story? The stories of God's people? You're exactly who you need to be today to be used by God. Today, you're exactly where you need to be in order to be used by God. Yeah, you've made some mistakes. Yes, you've lost your way. Yes, sometimes things seem blurry and you can't see ahead, but God can still use you. Today, you have everything you need in order to do what God's inviting you to do. I don't believe that God calls us to do things that He doesn't equip us to do. So if you're sitting here today and you feel like you're being nudged in a particular direction, but you don't feel like you have the skill set or the tools to do it, stop listening to the lies and understand that God will equip you to go where He's called you to go. Today you have another chance to know Jesus and to live for Him. You have today. Today's a gift. So take it and use it. And I'm not sure what God's asking you to do today. Maybe God's inviting you to know and follow Jesus for the very first time. If that's you and you're here this morning and you're hearing this message and you've been kind of listening in and you're starting to understand who Jesus is and you're ready to take that step, then I would ask you, don't wait another day. God's ready to be in relationship with you. And all it takes is for you understanding that you are a broken person, that you're a sinner, that you have a past that may not be pretty, but God sent His Son, Jesus, to walk this earth perfectly, and to die on a cross for you and I to pay the price for our sins so that we could have a relationship with Him. Yes, we're broken, but through Jesus, He makes us whole. He creates us anew so that we can live the life that He's called us to live. And if that's you, I would just plead with you to bow your heads and ask God into your heart. I'm broken, I'm a sinner, but Jesus, I believe that you're the Son of God. And come into my heart. And it says that Jesus gives us the Holy Spirit to walk with us, that helps us to guide us and direct us to live our lives for Him. Maybe you're here today and God's inviting you to be obedient. You know, maybe a path that you're supposed to follow, and He's saying, hey, just be obedient. Maybe you're here and God's asking you to make a change in your life. Maybe there's a change that you've known you've needed to make for a very long time, but you've never had the strength to make it. I'd ask if that's you, that you would ask God to give you the strength. We're going to pray here in a second. I just ask that you would plead with Him to give you the strength to make the change that you need to make. Maybe for some of you, it's time to make a stand. To make a stand for something that you believe so that you can make a difference in this world around you. And I believe it's all of our goals, every single one of us, to show someone love. If you don't know what else to do, then you can at least show someone love today. So what's God asking you to do? You have a past. Your past is valuable. It's shaped you maybe into who you are. But the ugly or the disappointing parts of your past don't have to define who you are in the future. You have today. Today is a gift. And so we're called to take it. So I'm going to close in prayer here in just a second, but I'm going to give you a minute to pray for yourself. We don't typically close that way, but this morning I want you to take some time of just silence. I think we'll have some music in the background here. And I just want you to talk to God. And I want you to ask God for whatever He's putting on your heart, to make the step that He's calling you to make today. Forget about your past and focus on what God's wanting you to do in the now. So I'm going to give you a minute to pray, and then I'll close this out in prayer. So everybody bow their heads. Father, I love the examples that you give us through your life. And I love the example that you set when you called out the Samaritan woman. And I remember the first time that I read that, or the first time that it really clicked in many years ago. And I was almost like, ouch, that's almost a little offensive. Like, Jesus, this woman is broken and you're just going to call out her past. But as you read the rest of the story and you see the bigger picture, Jesus didn't do it in a condemning way. Jesus did it in such a way to prove a point to this lady, and I think to prove a point to this world that, hey, I know your past. I know it's broken. I know everything you've done. I created you. And you've made mistakes. You've done things that are and should be condemned. But I love you anyways. The realization for the Samaritan woman as she sit there and she listened to the stranger tell her everything she had ever done, and she probably expected Jesus just to write her off, but instead he shares life-changing information with her and then uses her life to change the world around her. I know what you've done. It doesn't matter because I'm going to pay the price to wash it away, and I'm going to use your life. So go and live for me. And Father, I just pray that we can draw encouragement from that if there's someone sitting here this morning with a broken past and they feel like they're unusable and they're unredeemable, to understand that that's a lie. That you know their past, that you could call out every sin they've ever committed, and yet you love them anyways. And that you're ready to just pay the price for them. You did it on the cross to use their life for good and to change the world around them. So, Father, I just pray that we'll make steps towards you. That today will be a day where we set a new foot. We don't let our past determine our future, but we let you determine our future. Because you're the one who sets our path in motion. And you're the one who says, I have good things in store for you. And Father, I pray that if there's someone here this morning that hasn't taken that step to faith, that they'll do that they'll invite you in, that they'll give you their life, and that they'll let you fill them with the Holy Spirit. And that they'll celebrate and they'll share that with someone around them so that we can celebrate with them. To know that there's an exciting path ahead, and yeah, it's going to be full of hardships and mistakes and joy and excitement and everything in between. But that they have a plan and a purpose, and they can be used by you. So let us be a church, a body of people who is active and doesn't let our past be our excuse for not changing the world around us in the future. So we love you. We give you all the praise. And it's in Jesus' name we pray.